Good morning, everybody. As we start the chitas of the day. Okay. We start the chitas of the day. Good morning. Good morning. 1 second. Okay, today is Wednesday, fourth day of the week. It's the 28th day of the month of Shvat. So we are holding right now in chapter 22 chapter 22 of the book of Exodus. We are in the portion of Mishpatim, which deals with the laws of the Torah. So we're holding on chapter 22, verse 27. Elokim lo sikalel. You should not curse a judge. V'nasi ve'amcha lo ser. And a prince among your people, you're not allowed to curse either. So Rashi says this teaches us two laws: the law of cursing God, God forbid, and the law of cursing a judge. So the Elikim is usually God, but in the Torah, many times the word Elikim means a judge. Verse 28, another law. Meleischa, your fulfilling offering, your fulfillness offering. You should not, and your heaving offering, you shall not delay. The firstborn of your sons, Titein li, you shall give to me. So Rashi says, this teaches us, to begin with, the law of Bikurim. Later on, it tells us the first fruits. That's meleischa, what grows in your field. Vidimacha goes. What is the offerings? That goes on truma, on the truma, what you have to give to the kohen, the percentage you have to give to the kohen. So we know when you have fruits, you have to give bikurim every year. You have to give truma to the kohen, and you have to give maaser to the Levi, and then you have to give maaser ani to the poor man. So the Torah says lo sa'acher. You're not allowed to change its sequence. First goes Bikurim, then goes Truma to Kohen, then goes Maaser to the Levi, and then to the poor. So you have to go in sequence. The firstborn you have to give to me. This teaches us the law of Pidyon Haben, that you have to redeem your child. You have to redeem. Define what? You have to redeem your firstborn. The Torah obligates you to redeem the firstborn of your children. Okay? So the Torah teaches us again, if you have a field in Jewish law, you have to, off the field, you have to take Bikurim. It's no amount to Bikurim. You have to take the first fruits and bring it on the holiday of Shavuot to the Bet Hamikdash. From your wheat and from your fruits, you have to give a certain percent to the Kohen. It's called Truma, and then you have to give a percent to the Levi. Today you don't do it in America, for sure not. And you have to give to the Levi a certain percent, and you have to give also to the poor, Meiser Ani, which we'll learn later on in the Torah. So the Torah teaches again, Bechor, the firstborn you shall give to me. You have to give 5 corns if you have to, so to speak, be pointed, redeem a firstborn after 30 days. And so too, an animal, the firstborn of an animal. Not only the firstborn of a human has to be redeemed after 30 days, so too the firstborn of an animal has to be done after 30 days. Verse 29. So you shall do to your cattle and to your sheep. Shivas yamim yi'im imay. For 7 days, it will be with his mother. Ubayayim hashimini titanli, in the 8th day you give it to me. So Rashi said this teaches us that you're not allowed to bring a sacrifice of an animal until it's 8 days old. Can't rush the sacrifice. You need to wait for the animal to be with its mother for 8 days. And the 8th day, from the 8th day on, you can bring it as a sacrifice. Verse number 30. You should be holy to me. A flesh that was torn in the field, you're not allowed to eat. You should throw it to the dogs. So Rashi says, you shall be holy. What does that mean? Separate yourself from animals, that even animals that are kosher, that were not slaughtered kosherly, that were just killed. Whether the pasuk says in the field, but really it doesn't make a difference whether it was killed in the field or was killed in your home. If it was not slaughtered, it is not kosher. It's not pure. That's number one. Number two, like kelev tashlichun oisei. That says you should throw it to the dog. It doesn't only mean throw it to the dog. You can also give it to a non-Jew. The Torah wants to tell us over here that God rewarded the dogs. That when they didn't bark, when the Jewish people went out of Egypt, God said, I'm going to reward them with giving them, if a Jew by mistake made something non-kosher, that he would give it to a dog. New Law, chapter 23, verse number 1. You should not accept any false reports. Do not place your hand with a wicked person. Lias eis chamas, to be a false witness. So Rashi says, number one, don't accept false reports. This is a prohibition against accepting slander. That's number one. Don't accept somebody comes to talk to you lashon hara, walk away. Number two, a judge should not hear something. If a judge hears something without the other person there, that is a false report. He should never hear a case of somebody before, unless they're both standing in front of him. Number two, do not place your hand with a wicked person who files a false claim against his neighbor, for whom he promised to be a false witness. Do not become part of something that is a false situation. Verse number 2. You should not follow majority to evil. And you shall not respond concerning a lawsuit to follow many to pervert justice. Rashi says this is a very interesting statement, this is a very interesting pasuk, and there's many halachas that are learned from this pasuk, and he brings down the Gemara. The Gemara says one of the things we learn from this pasuk is that you never judge a person, especially to death, when you only have one person extra. That means a capital case is judged in a minimum of 23 rabbis. 23 rabbis. So if you have 12 that says you should kill him, and 11 that says he shouldn't be put to death, you don't kill him. You need to have 13 against 10. You need to have more than a roiv. You need more than a majority. You need to have at least more than a majority. I said, if you have a court of 23, you can't do it 12 and 11. You need to have 13 and 10. And the opposite is in a case of to be mezaka somebody. If there was 12 who said that you don't kill him, and 11 says you do kill him, they would free him. So that's what the pasuk wants to tell us. Rashi says. That's what the Gemara says. Rashi says, I'll give you another interpretation, and that's his own interpretation, that if you see, if you're a judge or you're any person who sees that a majority of people are doing something wicked, that doesn't say you should follow them. That's because they are the majority. You shouldn't follow even a majority if you know they're doing something wrong. Very important thing. You should always follow the truth, even though a majority are not doing it correctly. And so too, to a judge, Rashi says. If a judge thinks, oh, there's a majority that's going wrong. Oh, I'm going to lose anyway. I'm going to lose anyway. Let me just go with the majority. Let me be part of the majority. But I know that it's wrong. So the Torah tells you no. If you know you're the minority, say what is truth to you. And even if the majority is going to go against you and is going to go according to the majority, you say, the judge should say what he thinks is the truth. And let it be like the majority, and it'll be their negative. Don't just say because the majority is going that way, I'm going to go that way to be part of a majority when I know it's wrong. Therefore, the Torah tells us, do not do that. Okay, verse number 3, a new law. Neither shall he glorify the poor man in his lawsuit. Rashi says it's very important to a judge that if a poor man is in front of him and a rich man, both of them are in front of him, he shouldn't say, oh, I'm going to glorify the poor. Oh, you know what? Achmanas on the poor. Why will I take away the money from the poor and give it to the rich? That's not your job. If the poor man stole money, you have to judge him in that way. Do not get involved and say, I mean, he's or the other way around. You shouldn't say, oh, the guy's rich, I have to honor him. Either way, you should not honor you should honor the law. As a judge, you honor the law. Verse number 4. New law. If you come upon your enemy's bull, or his donkey, Toya, he was the lost. You should return it to him. That's the law of Hashavas Haveda, of returning a lost object. Verse number 5. If you see your enemy's donkey, who's lying under the burden of his load, would you refrain from helping him? You should surely help him along with him. Rashi says ki over here serves as an expression of perhaps, which is one of the 4 meanings of ki. Ki has 4 meanings, and this is not that ki could be if. That's we perhaps. When. Will you refrain from helping him? You have to say it in a question. Aziv taziv, you have to help him. You have to help him. And that's something to teach us that even though he's your enemy, you should help his animal from the pain. When the Rashi continues and says, when should you help him? Aziv taziv imoy. The Gemara says that the person, you have to help him. You don't have to help. You don't have to. The guy can't say, you do it, and I can go have a cup of coffee. You should help him. Do it together with him. Or, if the man's an older man, he's a zakeh, and he cannot do it, then you have to do it by yourself. So Rashi says, Aziv taziv imay, to upload the burden, to help the animal with the burden. Over here, this ends the Chumash, but here's the famous teaching of the Baal Shem Tov, that the pasuk is telling us, If you see your chamer goes on your body, your physicality, who really hates you, he really hates the godly soul. He's trying to not let the godly soul to do its job. But if he doesn't let the godly soul do its job, then his burden becomes extremely heavy. So you might look at your body and say, let it self-destruct. Let it go through affliction. So the Baal Shem Tov says, no. Afflicting the body and breaking the body is not going to help anything, because the purpose of life is to bring godliness in the world, and that's through the body. And therefore, you need to refine the body, not break the body. And that finishes the Chumash of the day. We are now going to go to the Tanya of the day. And we are holding on chapter 29 in the book of Tanya. The Alter Rebbe continues, and it says, those whose souls are a level of Abeinim must seek means of contending with yet another difficulty. If you think life was not difficult enough, so the Alter Rebbe said, I would tell you something else that a person that's a Beini needs to work on. So the Alter Rebbe says, what is the struggle of a Beini? We already know the struggle of a Beini, but the Alter Rebbe says, you're going to give you one more thing that's going to be a big struggle by a Beini, by a regular person. Occasionally, even frequently, Yeshlem Timtum Alev, they experience the dullness of the heart. Shenasa Ke'evan, indifference. Suddenly, they feel like there's no life. They feel like a stone. And they cannot open their hearts. That's it. They're stuck. We get stuck. And for some reason, it doesn't let us to have a feeling, a godly feeling, to prayer. And that's a problem. That's a problem, because that's our human nature. That's one of the ways of the animalistic soul, is to put this wall up. I put this wall up. It's like I think I'm protecting myself, but I put this wall of indifference. And sometimes it's too heavy. Like we just mentioned about Shem Tov. The donkey, the chumrius, that's why a donkey is called a chamer, because it's chumrius, the density. Chamer is the same thing as dense. It's so dense. The Gemara says a donkey is cold even in the month of Tammuz. While everybody is sweating, the donkey is cold. And that can happen to us. We suddenly become cold. We cannot fight ourselves. It's too dense. So a Kaddish asks him to sanctify himself. I just asked you to sanctify yourself. Because the evil impulse, the heaviness of the heart, as we just said in the Chumash, it's just too heavy. Life has become too heavy and extremely hard for us to break through. It's a problem. And this is a big problem. What do you do about this? This is a big issue, the Alter Rebbe says. And here is my idea. This is the way I think you can do something about it. So in this case, the Alter Rebbe says, I'm going to give you advice that's brought in the Zohar. The Zohar brings a story that Rav was a famous rabbi in the Gemara, Rav and Shmuel. Throughout the whole Talmud, you'll find Rav and Shmuel. They were big academies in Pumbedisa, and that was in those days Syria, Bavel. The whole Masechta Talmud Bavli is written in Bavel. These were great sages of Babylonian sages. And they said, so the Zohar says, we're talking about Rav when he's in Gan Eden, when he's in paradise. Rav in paradise is teaching a wooden beam. Take a wooden beam, thick wooden beam, and when you take a thick wooden beam, you can't catch fire. How do you take a can't catch fire? It's too thick. It's too dense. What do? You have to break it. You got to take the beam. You got to break it into pieces. Now you break it into pieces, it can become firewood. So the Rav said, what do we learn from that? A body that's like a beam that you cannot catch the fire, the flame cannot catch in it. What do you do with it? Mitvachile, you have to break it. There are some times you need to break it. You need to break it. Pirush, the Alter Rebbe says, reference to the light of the soul, which means the light of the soul and of the intellect does not illuminate to such an extent to prevail over the coarseness of the body. Thus, although he understands and meditates in his mind on the greatness of God, yet which he understands and is not apprehended and implanted in his mind, told to the point where he's able to prevail over the coarseness of the heart. Why? Because of the degree of their coarseness and crassness. It's just not working. I'm learning, I'm comprehending, but it's just not breaking through. It doesn't have the capability to break through. Why? The cause is not because I'm not learning well. The cause is because of the arrogance of this klippa. The covering is so deep. The chamer is so dense. The guf is so thick, so to say. Because it exalts itself over the light and the holiness of the light of the divine soul. And obscures its light. It looks like it's still dark. So I'm learning. It's not breaking through. I'm so dense. I'm so thick. I am so coarse. I don't know what would you want to use. It's just not happening. You need to crush yourself once in a while. You need to crush it and cast it down to the ground. Just as previously quoted an analogy, the beam is splintered so that it catches fire. So how do you do this? This is dangerous. This is not so simple because you got to be careful crushing oneself. This process needs to be carefully done because you don't want to crush yourself. That's gonna crush you. Therefore, the Alter Rebbe says this means one must crush the sitra achra and cast it to the ground by setting aside appointed times for humbling oneself and considering himself despicable and contemptible. A person has to once in a while sit down and say, you know what, I'm not such a big person. I am a simple Jew. I am a simple person. I am making myself too haughty. I need to have some humility in life. I need to have some humility. And that is a leiv nishbar. I need to sit down and have a broken heart. Ruach nishbar, a broken spirit. He sitra achra she adam atzmi bein. Being in the sitra achra, which is the case of Beini, is a man itself. My sitra achra is part of me. That's the problem. It became part of me. That my body doesn't have any fire of godliness. So it became part of me. It's not like something that's separate of me. This animalistic soul has become part of my DNA, my essence, my physical essence. For the heart, the vital soul which animates the body, is at full strength as it in birth. This is indeed the very man himself. That's what happens. It becomes me against my godly soul. That's the struggle. It's not like a godly soul against an animalistic soul. It's me against my godly soul. I become my animalistic soul. I become so dense that it's me. And now my godly soul is coming from someplace else. The Alter Rebbe wanted to accomplish through learning Tanya that it's not me against my godly soul. It's a godly soul against an animalistic soul that are fighting over the person. But what happens? What happens is my animalistic soul became me. And now I have this godly soul that's outside trying to get in. So it became me. I became my animalistic soul. That's the heaviness. That's when you become a chamor. That's when I become a donkey. I become a donkey. I become this chumris. I become this thickness. I become this denseness. I become this indifference. I create this indifference. I create this wall. And now something is trying to penetrate this wall. It's very difficult. I got to break the wall. I got to find a pathway. I got to not break the whole wall, which will be impossible. I got to make a crack in the wall. That's why God's expression. God says, open me up like the crack of a needle, like the width of a needle. Get a little bit of open. I'll get through. But you got to crack. You got to make a crack. You got to open it up a little bit. I understand you can't break the wall down. You got to open it up a little bit. And that takes a little bitush. So over here, we're not looking. That's why in Chassidut, you have bittul hayesh and bittul b'metzias. We have the concept of the negate, bittul, the nullification of ego, or the nullification of self. You're never going to nullify yourself, and it might be very dangerous to do that, because it might affect you in ways that you cannot handle the nullification of self. We need the nullification of ego. That's what Rav says. Break your ego. Break my ego. Crack it. Sit down and think about humility once in your life. And maybe it's not going to open up, but you'll open up a little bit. So this is chapter 29 of Tanya. And which regard to the divine soul, it's written that the soul that you gave me is pure. Shenasata bi, you put in me. That's a daika. Miklal she'adam atzme ein neshama teira. Shenasata bi, she'is a neshama. Shenasata bi, that you put in me. I can become extremely dense. I can become extremely evil. I can become extremely negative. And now the neshama is trying to penetrate through. Unless I'm righteous. When I'm righteous, my soul and my body became one, but I'm not righteous. And therefore, my body can sometimes become thick as a rock. My heart can become thick, strong, dense as a stone. And therefore, by a righteous person, who are them? By the Shama, by a righteous man, it's the opposite. His godly soul, he became a godly soul. Him and his body, his godly soul became his body. And that's why by a righteous man, what is he? He is his godly soul. Body is irrelevant. His body became just the vehicle of his godly soul. That's a tzaddik. So when you look at a tzaddik, whether you look at a tzaddik, you know a tzaddik, whether he's a tzaddik is alive, tzaddik, you know what is a tzaddik? His godly soul. And that's what he really is. The goof from Nikra Basad, they have a body. The godly soul wasn't a physical body. But that was not important. It was irrelevant, the body. It could have been in any body. It's irrelevant, their godly soul. It's the opposite by us. By us, it's total opposite. But the Alter Rebbe continues. As Hillel once told his students, that when he went to eat, he would say, we said, listen, you know what? I got to go eat. Do I want to eat? No, I'm still studying. but I have to go show some, I got to go do a favor to this lowly and poor creature, he said. I got to do a favor to my body. So excuse me, we got to go to lunch. But really, I need to eat. I don't want to eat. I want to sit and learn Torah. But okay, I got a body. I got to do it. I got to give it food. If it's not going to give it food, my body's not going to be happy. So let's stop learning. Let's go do a favor to this creature. Let's go do a favor to this body. That's his body. So the body was like a stranger. His soul was his entity. His godly soul was his purpose. His godly soul was his reality. And now, I have a body. Okay, let's go. We have to go take care of the body also. But it's the other way. The body is the temple of our life. And, we have a soul. We have to think about the soul once in a while. Do we remember the soul? Do we think about the soul? That's the difference. We're not a tzaddik. So the Alter Rebbe continues. And he says, for he himself is nothing other than the divine soul of tzaddik. It alone animated his body and flesh, and so much as tzaddikim, the evil that was in the vital souls pervading their blood and the flesh, has been transformed into good and completely absorbed in the wholeness of the divine soul. The body became bottle. The body was a vehicle for the godly soul. But as still a body, it needs to eat. It needs to do whatever a body needs to do. But really, the body had no reason. There was no purpose in the eating for itself. There was a purpose to keep the body existence, to keep the body alive. That completes the Tanya. Self-understood that the Alter Rebbe is going to continue. The opposite is by a Beinani, that his body is the temple of his life, and therefore the soul is fighting to get in here. The soul is fighting to get into the body, and therefore we need to figure out a way to give the soul the capability to break through the body. And if we can give the soul the capability to break through the body, then we will be able to accomplish what the Beinani is supposed to accomplish in the world, and that is to bring godliness in his service, in his avodas Hashem, in his service to God. That completes the Tanya of the day. Today, as I mentioned, is the 28th day of the month of Shvat. The Tillim of the day is from chapter 135 to chapter 140. So chapter 135, 136, 137, 138, and 139. And you would have done the chitas of the day. I truly wish you a happy, healthy, wonderful, beautiful day. God bless you all.
Thank you, Rabbi.
You're welcome.